Welcome to the Dr. Leaf Show, and I am so excited. We have such a great surprise for you today. We've got Talia with us, who is a dating expert. She has an amazing podcast, an amazing story, and we're going to be talking about the whole mental health side and the neuroscience and really practical tips on dating. So, Talia, welcome. I've been really looking forward to this conversation because I think it's going to be so helpful for so many people.
Thank you so much for having me on. I'm just so excited to get into it.
Okay, well, let's start with your backstory. How did you become a
Sure.
dating expert?
Sure. So, I took the approach of like the 10,000 hours,
Yeah.
kind of approach. I don't know how many hours I put into it, but I did go on over 150 dates in under a
Wow.
year. Not with 150 people, it was like 64 people. I really took this approach where I wanted to track everything. I wanted to really hone in on my patterns, learn how to break them, and just figure dating out for myself. So I went on this journey of trying every piece of advice I could find online in books and testing it out and then figuring out an approach that works for me. Along the way, I really wanted to help other people do the same.
That's amazing. So you went into this quite scientifically and, looking at all the different approaches and things you could do. And it's so interesting. You said 150 dates, 64 people in
In
12
under a
months,
year. Yeah.
in under a year. That's amazing. And you are now married, aren't you?
Yes. Yes. I married the 57th man that I met.
You know how we have the president's 44, whatever. So your husband's 57th.
Yes, exactly. I'm really glad I did this. If you're listening and you're like, wow, that's a lot. It's a lot. I don't want people to date the way I did necessarily. I had a lot of time and energy for this, but I know that's not realistic for most people. I'm also very mentally resilient. And I know that's what you help people with a lot, like working on that mental health piece. So I've done a lot of work on that already coming into that journey.
Now, you said that you researched online and got books and everything on dating, and now you have a podcast that's specifically focused on bringing all the things you've learned to the table. So, I mean, that's just so helpful for people. What has the response been?
The response has been fantastic. I try to speak to everyone, but I would say my listeners are mostly women. I have tons of great guys to listen. Straight people, queer people listen. And I think that the response has just been finally someone who is speaking in a way that's just practical. I'm not very woo woo with things. I'm not against that. It's just not my style. And,
Hmm.
just like, here's what you do, here's what's going on. We don't have to like go super deep into your trauma, childhood, your whole like emotional makeup to navigate dating. It's like,
Hmm.
let's focus more on what you want and taking actions that align with that. And that's basically my whole show.
I love that. Practical, simple, and people can expand whichever way they want. In my work, I emphasize, as you know, the power of neuroplasticity in reshaping thought patterns and how we can direct that. And if you think of it with dating, I mean, we have certain thought patterns that we bring to the table, and you are helping people reshape them. How did you apply intentional thinking to break free from dating patterns that no longer served you? And what were those dating patterns? So, did you have patterns?
Yes.
What were they? How did you break free? Three parts to that question.
I had patterns. We all do. So funny, when I was starting to date, I was 29, and the last time I was single, I was 23. So I was in a relationship for 6 years. When I
Wow.
started dating again, I literally had the approach of a 23-year-old. That's how I felt in my body and in my mind. I
Okay.
was like, wow, I'm really starting this from a point of like my early 20s, but in my late 20s, I need to change things. Some of the patterns that I had that were holding me back included a lot of people pleasing, a lot of jumping into bed quickly because I wanted to get them to like me. I thought that was the way.
Mhm.
A lot of ghosting, just things that were
Mhm.
just all bad. I wasn't a good dater at all at the beginning. So then again, I kind of threw myself in just to see what would happen. I think one mistake daters make and people make is like they want to start at like and be perfect on the first run.
Mhm.
Go in and see
Mhm.
what happens, see how you feel, see what comes up. Then my next step was then like, okay, identifying those patterns, now trying to change them. Of course, when you try to change patterns, it's going to be clunky and messy and sticky. It's not going to be overnight. So I kind of had to work through that. So by the time I did meet my husband, I had already identified these patterns and had set up systems for myself to choose differently. That looked like slowing down. That looked
Mhm.
like being more direct even when it felt uncomfortable. Speaking up for
Mhm.
my boundaries even when it felt like it
Mhm.
was like my skin was crawling from that because I was so not used to setting boundaries as a people pleaser and saying no, right?
Mm.
And with enough practice, I became more comfortable with it. So by the time I did meet the man of my dreams, I was a better dater. And all of that set me up to be a really good partner too.
Oh, I like that. I love the fact that you just said something very relevant, that the dating practice sets you up to be a really good partner. So this is not just information about how to, get the next best date. It's looking at a lifelong commitment, made you a better person. And a couple of things you said, that we have this goal to try and be perfect. And especially in this day and age, and with social media and everything, there is this thing, isn't there, to be perfect. And then you gave the advice, it's really important to relax, because if you're trying to be perfect, I assume, knowing from what I know, you're not going to be authentic, and people pick that up. So your advice there is relax. Don't try and be perfect. Be you. Relax into being you.
Yes.
Did I get that right? Okay, then the next thing you said, time to change. And I was really glad you emphasized that, because I've shown in my work, and people that follow this podcast know that I talk about the fact that it takes 63 days minimum to rewire
Mhm.
network. So those patterns you spoke about, they're not going to just go away in the first date. It would have been quite a few weeks, probably up to around 9 weeks to 3 months, to really start seeing a change in your pattern. Now, you did comment, you said around the 57th date. So interesting, in the healing journey of building a habit, whether it's healing or building, around day 42 to 57 is quite a significant time where you get tremendous insight into who you are, and you really can understand what you did wrong. Up until that point, you're still learning, but there's this
Right.
insight that happens around 57 to 63 days in that journey of building a habit. Okay, this is who I am. So when you said the 57th and time to change, I mean, we're not creating a formula here, but we're just saying there's something very interesting about the time frame there. I found that fascinating, because I
That
assume,
is so interesting. I want to just clarify for listeners.
yeah,
That was about 9 months into my
9 months
dating
in.
journey. Yes. So, I took breaks here and there. There were also times where I did meet someone, I dated them for like a month and I wasn't seeing other people. There were these short relationships, but I think you're hitting on something really relevant, which is that it did take around 50 first dates to where I really felt more confident in the new patterns I was creating for myself.
And that makes so much sense, because in a 63-day neurocycle journey, each day is a new time frame. So each date is a new
Mhm.
time frame. Then the point is, it takes time. And it's
Yeah.
it's weeks. It's weeks. It's not 5 minutes. And then you said slow down. And what did you say here? You said about slowing down to make sure, if I understood you correctly, slow down in order for you to be able to set boundaries. And for you, that was so important because you battle with people pleasing. So the
Yes.
slowdown was to give you insight into what you needed to be comfortable. Is that
Well, you
correct?
also talk about yes, well, you also talk about
Yeah,
this in your book, right?
yeah,
In your new
yeah.
book, where it's like this the pause helped me identify my emotions and be in my
Love it.
body to kind of
Mm,
feel through those before acting, because you never want to act in the height of emotion, especially with dating. You're going to end up saying and doing things that you regret later or things you don't mean. You don't want to be acting from that place in dating. That is not going to help you. So once you
that's
recognize
so
you're
good.
doing that, like then you can slow down and be like, okay, what do I actually want? What do I feel? Okay, let's manage the feelings first. Then what are the actions I can take that will align with what I want? So if I want someone, if I want to go on another date with someone, I'm not going to play it cool and draw back and not text them. I'm going to ask them
Mm,
on another date.
I love it. Just say, can you just put, you mentioned three, just mentioned, say those again. They were so good.
So it's slowing down so you can manage your emotions, figure out what you're feeling. Then you can identify what you want, and then you can then figure out what action would align with that.